Year 7, so today you should have your mark making worksheet in front of you that looks like this. You should have some paint, but I am only going to use the green, blue and purple as its colours of the sea. And you'll have lots of different objects where we're going to use them to create different marks on our piece of paper. So I've got a piece of bubble wrap there, I've got a straw that's cut up, I've got a fork, I've got a glue stick, I've got the end of a paintbrush, a card and a piece of string, but don't worry, we'll make sure you have all of that before we get started. So I'm just going to move that out of the way. So the first one here, I've got bubble wrap. So I'm going to dip the bubble wrap because it will make quite cool marks because of all the circles. So I'm just going to dip that into my paint. Make sure there's not like a load of paint all over it because otherwise it's not going to make very nice marks. Take it to the square, press it very lightly and then take it back up. It's got a bit of orange in it, but that's okay. And then you can kind of move the bits around to make some more dots, and that looks quite cool. Then we're going to move on to doing a straw and the end of a paintbrush. So I've got the end of my paintbrush there, I've got my straw here. I'm going to use green for this one. So I'm going to dip it in the green and I'm just going to create lots of little circles. As you can see, some of them come up as circles, whoops, some of them come up as a whole circle with the paint, which is kind of cool. So I'm going to keep going doing that. Then what I'm going to do is get the end of my paintbrush, I'm going to use purple for this one. I'm going to make some smaller dots around where I've done the straw. There we go. And it doesn't matter, you can kind of do different things. You could even get the end of the straw as well, the one that you haven't painted, dip it in a different colour. So I'm going to dip it in blue, and then I could kind of make some more marks to fill some of the gaps up. Like so. Now we're going to move on to a piece of card. So I have a small piece of card here, and it's quite thick card. I'm going to dip it in the paint, and I'm going to kind of scrape it across to make the mark. So I'm going to pop it into the purple. Again, it hasn't got loads of paint on there. Then I am going to drag it across the piece of paper, like so. When you use less pieces, or less paint, then it kind of works a bit better. What you can also do is you can cut some shapes into the card. I'm just going to cut some triangles into the card so that when it picks up the paint, it's now going to make this. So as you can see, I've cut little triangles out. I'm going to pop it into the blue, and then as you can see, it kind of scrapes across in some lines. So that's kind of cool. Like that. Then I'm going to leave that to one side. So underneath each one of these, I've written what I've used for it so I remember. So this one's bubble wrap, this one's a straw and the end of a paintbrush, and this is card. And I could put card plus triangle shape. There we go. Now we're going to get down to a glue stick. So this might be quite similar to this, but it's one of these glue sticks that you use when you're kind of in primary school. I'm going to pop that into my green, and I'm just going to kind of like scrape bits around like so. It's quite nice when it has not much paint on it as well. So when you keep going, then what I may do is get my blue, and I might just kind of make little dashes with them. Like so. As you can see, we're starting to get different marks. We can either scrape it up, or I could even just scrape them through and kind of make a marbly effect, which looks good. And then I'm going to pop, I can then go over the top with like some purple lines. This one's starting to look really cool actually. Like so. There we go. So now I'm going to move on to, I'm getting paint everywhere, but I'm going to move on to using a fork. So this is just a normal plastic fork that you can get from Tesco, that you use kind of when you're at birthday parties. Then I'm going to pop my end of my fork into, I'm going to put it in purple this time. And then I'm going to use it to scrape some lines across. So you have to have quite a lot of paint on it to make some lines. Got to pop it in the blue. Oh, it kind of works good that way as well. So if I put it this way and then scrape, they make some smaller lines. If I do it the other way, it makes bigger lines. You have to keep making sure you keep putting more paint on the paintbrush, on the fork. There you go. And then we can kind of drag some of it up, like so. Kind of looks like a little bit of a net. There we go. Now our last one is our string. This one's going to get a bit messy, that's why I left it till last. What I'm going to do with my paint, I'm just going to pop that there so that you can see. I'm going to get a piece of string, just a small piece here. I'm going to dip the whole thing into my paint, like so. I'm then going to pop it onto my page, and then hopefully I can then pull it away. I don't think I put enough on there. Let's put more on there. So this is going to get very messy. And then I'm going to pop it onto my piece of paper, and then I can pop it onto my piece of paper, and then I kind of drag it off. That one makes a lot more mess than the other one has. So then I'm going to pop it back in the paint again. Just going to pop it onto the sheet, and I'm just going to kind of pull it away. It might go off the side, but that's totally fine. So I'm going to move that out the end. So by the end of this, you should have one with bubble wrap, one with the straw and the end of a paintbrush, card or triangle by triangle shapes of cutting them in, the glue stick, the fork, and the string. The string hasn't worked too well, but I think it's because you really need to dip it in to make some cool shapes. So what you can also do after that is you could get a paint or a lollipop stick, and you can kind of carve back into it to kind of create some swirls, which is kind of sgraffito. I think we've done it before, where you paint and then you scrape some of the paint away and kind of make some really cool shapes. So by the end you should have something that looks like that.